And we are live. Hello, gorgeous people. It's Fiona here from Harley Street Emporium and the Menopause Research and Education Fund with the fantastic Dr. Louise Oliver, who we have spoken to before about breathing and the importance of it. And tonight we're combining that with sleep for a couple of very good reasons. The many very good reasons, actually. In part of the many things that I do to make sure that I can actually feed myself, I write for Health Ed Australia, which is a company that provides medical education for healthcare practitioners. And last year they said to me, would you write something on sleep and driving? And I thought, oh God, this is going to be as dull as dishwater. But then found that it was actually incredibly interesting. And that's where I discovered from the wonderful man who set up sleep clinics in Australia, Dr. Anup Desai, that around 60% of menopausal women have obstructive sleep apnea. And as we had from the story that I sent to you a little while ago, that new study that came out showing that a 1% loss of slow wave sleep can increase your risk of dementia by 27%. I had meant today to do the maths to work out exactly what 1% of an 8-hour night of sleep was, but I haven't had the time, so I'll leave that to other people to do. But in the meantime, Dr. Louise Oliver, you are a GP, 20 years experience, and now a functional breathing practitioner and therapeutic life coach as well. So after the world's longest introduction, guide us through the phases of sleep.
So there's 4 stages of sleep. So we call them N1, N2, N3 and N4. And we cycle through these different stages of sleep as we go through the night, repeated various times. All stages of sleep are important and they have different roles. People often talk about rapid eye movement sleep, so that's N4 sleep. N1 and N2 tend to be the more lighter sleeps, and the deeper sleep is more N3 and N4.
And in those deeper sleep phases, or which are the ones that really matter to the way we wake up in the morning? Because this is, a lot of menopausal women as well will wake up in the morning and go, God, I feel absolutely exhausted. I'm on HRT. I don't know why I feel this way. But what in their sleep, in those patterns, would influence the way we feel during the day?
Well, the deeper stages of sleep have a lot more importance with regard to memory, learning and emotional processing. So obviously it's common, a frequent symptom that patients or people complain of is brain fog and feeling overwhelmed, feeling down, feeling anxious. And clearly, obviously, estrogen has a very powerful role in those symptoms, of course. But what I want to encourage people to do is just question, could it be the way I'm breathing is influencing those symptoms? So could it be the way that you're breathing that is taking you out of those deeper stages of sleep, and then robbing you of that chance to do that emotional processing, to consolidate those memories and the learning from the day?
When we're in those deeper sort of slow wave patterns of sleep, what is the brain actually doing then, and why is it important not to have it disrupted?
Well, it's making all those, it's consolidating all those memories, those learning, and also the other thing which I've been doing some reading about recently, and I'm very happy to be corrected because it's something I'm only just beginning to learn about, is when we're in those deeper stages of sleep, that's actually when our waste removal system of the brain, called the glymphatic system, actually performs the majority of the function. So this waste removal system was only recognized, I think it was 2012, if I'm correct. And actually it's when we're in these deeper stages of sleep that the body is able to remove all this waste product, in particular proteins that promote dementia. So if that individual's being taken out of that slow wave sleep, that deep sleep, then they're potentially not removing as many toxins from the brain, and then obviously that could lead to symptoms.
Absolutely, and that's sort of like the key to it, really, isn't it? That sort of drainage and the cleaning up of those nasty sort of waste products. In many cases, people might think, well, okay. Typically, if we've got insomnia, some people might find it hard to get to sleep. Some people might wake up in the middle of the night and then spend the rest of the night, like I do, looking at the ceiling, and then we're attempting to solve every problem in the world until we finally bore ourselves to death and go back to sleep, if we're lucky. or they may not actually notice that they're really waking up. How do people know if they're actually getting a decent night's sleep?
Well, there's various different ways, isn't there? But if you wake up feeling refreshed, raring to go, and you're not feeling sleepy in the day, then that indicates that potentially your sleep's of good quality. But clearly, if you're waking up and you're feeling, despite having what seems like a long amount of sleep, you're feeling very tired, unrefreshed. You might wake up actually with a lot of nasal congestion or headaches. You might have noticed that you got a lot of saliva on your pillow, which maybe suggests that you've actually had your mouth open whilst you've been asleep. Your mouth might be very dry. All these things could indicate possibly that you're not, the way that you're breathing at night is could influence how you're sleeping.
Now, a lot of people might tell their husbands or their partners that they're snoring, and a lot of partners might tell their wives or female partners that they're snoring, and sometimes people get very, very upset about that.
Mm-hmm.
But what does snoring tell us about our breathing?
Well, when we're asleep, that is our unconscious breathing pattern. So that is telling you about your breathing pattern. So, I mean, I've been a doctor a very long time, and I thought either you breathed or you didn't breathe, and I thought it was that. But actually, there's a spectrum of breathing efficiency. So you can breathe efficiently, really very inefficiently, or it can be anywhere along that spectrum. And the reason why I am a breathing practitioner now is because I became a perimenopausal snorer, and I absolutely remember the moment where the thought of I had a very, very negative reaction when I thought, oh, there's something wrong with my breathing. Well, there isn't something wrong with my breathing. I run 3 times a week. I don't feel breathless. But then when I remember the moment I sat down and read the definition of sleep disordered breathing, and I was heavily snoring, and I had to say, okay, Louise, get a grip. You have sleep disordered breathing. What are you going to do about it? And there's various reasons why I became that, and we can go into that. But essentially, it's your unconscious breathing pattern. So if you're breathing with your mouth open, it's noisy. So whether that's snoring or it just sounds noisy, or you've got gaps in breathing, that's your body telling you that's your unconscious breathing pattern, and it's not efficient at night. And that can impact your body. But we can change the way we breathe. We can change the way we breathe.
This is true. We will come to the way that we can change. But in the meantime, so are there various, I mean, apart from, with sleep apnea, we tend to think of it as, the 60-year-old very overweight truck driver who's sort of never done any exercise, but it really isn't. It is actually up to, I think it's actually 67% of postmenopausal women. That's a lot of women who don't know, perhaps, that they do actually have something that increases their risk of cardiovascular disease, increases their risk of dementia, and actually makes them a dangerous driver, which is not a good thing, really. Operating machinery when we're really, really tired isn't a good idea. So what is it that leads us to that point? Is it weight gain? Is it that the soft palate has turned to mush? Why do we get into this situation in the first place?
Well, you are right that the data definitely suggests that as women transition from perimenopause to postmenopause, there's a steep rise in sleep disordered breathing. And that is a spectrum. There's a spectrum of that. Obstructive sleep apnea is one end of the spectrum, and snoring sort of middle, and then noisy breathing is at the other end of that. And we're not quite sure. It definitely happens. There's thoughts as to why. Clearly, hormones have an influence on that. But obviously, there can be other things. What I will say, at any age, there's always more men that have sleep disorder breathing than women, but there's this steep rise as we go through to postmenopause. And women will present differently than men. And certainly my clinical experience matches what you're saying. We have the potential to overlook this and miss this because people present differently. And unless you're asking the right questions, you will miss it. But yes, we're not quite sure. Certainly, as soon as we gain weight, I believe the first place we put on weight is our tongue. So clearly, if we put weight on our tongue, yeah, apparently so. We put weight on in our tongue, in the back of the throat. So clearly, that's going to impact the airway and narrow it to make it more likely to obstruct. Also, we know that as we get older, if we're not actively using a muscle, it gets weaker. and we're talking about resistance training to maintain muscle mass, but are we talking about tongue exercises, throat exercises to keep that airway open? Are we talking about strengthening up those muscles that help you breathe in? So inspiratory muscle training. And if we're not doing that, then clearly our ability to breathe in and out easily without obstruction or resistance to it will get worse. And this is what we're not talking about.
So this is an interesting thing actually you raise it, because when we think about exercises, we think about the gym and lifting weights and all of those kinds of things. But are there actually things that you can do to get that soft palate at the back to stop being such a floppy thing? I was actually having this conversation earlier with Jo Ingleby, who said she was joining with us earlier, about, because my theory was, if you were a singer or a swimmer or somebody like that who's sort of doing that deep diaphragmatic breathing and things like that, then perhaps should have less of a risk. And especially if you're a singer, because you're always using that sort of that soft palate at the back to sort of, get the resonance in your head in the right place. So you've got that sort of nice sort of coming out there. So are there exercises then that you can do that actually then improve it if you are a snorer?
They are. I've worked with 3 professional singers who are at various stages of perimenopause and menopause. So despite them having really good muscles, they were experiencing problems with their breathing. And there's a third component to what I was just saying, is actually, are we breathing the volume that we need, or are we over breathing? So quite a lot of us in modern day society, for various reasons, over breathe. And if we over breathe, if you can imagine, you've just got a small airway, so the breathing tube here is only about the size of a thumb. If you're breathing more air in and out each minute, you're more likely for it to vibrate, which is the snoring, or for it to collapse. And I have a theory, and this is based on my experience and general principles of science, so I can't reference this with the paper. I think women, as they transition through to postmenopause, become more intolerant to the buildup of carbon dioxide. And certainly with those professional singers, even though they had good diaphragmatic strength and other muscles, they've become more intolerant to the buildup of carbon dioxide. And we worked on improving that, and that helped their issues, and also as an added bonus, it helps their singing. So to improve it, it involves lots of different things, but there you can do tongue and throat exercises. I do them daily to strengthen up. Having the correct tongue position is crucial. To train your body to have the tongue in the correct position in the day, so that it becomes unconscious, so it's in that position overnight. It helps open up the airway.
Where should it be?
Where should it be? So your tongue,
tongue be?
so your tongue should actually be on the roof of your mouth or on the top of your mouth. So this is if people do this, if you're able to lie on the floor now, do it lying on the floor. If you can't do it now, do it tonight when you're in bed, or whenever you're next in bed. And if you open your mouth, the tongue is one of the only muscles that's connected to a bone just at one end, so it's not connected at both ends. So as soon as you open your mouth, the bone it's connected to is under here. So as soon as you open your mouth, your tongue's at the bottom of your mouth, but the back of the tongue forms part of the airway. So if you lie on your back, you have your mouth open, you'll notice the tongue's in the bottom of your mouth, and then breathe in, listen and feel to what happens at the back of the throat. So
I'm going to disappear for a moment onto the office floor. 1 second.
You're going to try it and see. a live demonstration. So
see, because
it's definitely, you notice it more when you lay down. So Fiona, obviously lay on your back, make sure, so open your mouth. You'll notice your tongue's in the bottom of your mouth now. Now breathe in, listen to the noise you hear, and feel what happens at the back of your throat. So I would imagine you can feel an obstruction at the back of the throat, and it's quite noisy. How did it feel? I might not, you're too far away from the microphone, so I'll carry on talking.
No, so then, trying it out. It just felt dry.
It felt dry, yes. But if you then close your mouth, but consciously keep your tongue in the bottom of the mouth, what you'll notice is it gets quieter because you've closed your mouth. Your nostrils are smaller than your mouth, so your breathing volume, you're not breathing in as fast. So it'll be quieter, but you'll probably still feel a bit of an obstruction at the back. If you then put your tongue in the correct position, and I've been a doctor a very long time and I didn't realize this, the tongue goes up on the roof of the mouth, so flat against the roof of the mouth. Okay, and as you feel you do that, because it's connected under here, you actually get a bit of a chin lift. It comes up here.
That'd be nice.
Yep, with a little bit of light suction to stick it on there. Now, the tongue is a very, very strong muscle, so you don't want to put the tip of the tongue pressing against the front teeth. So you want the tip of the tongue to be on the ridge of tissue above the front teeth. You then need to seal your lips and don't clench. So for me, I don't like my teeth in light contact. Some people can find that's okay. I like a tiny bit of gap between, and then obviously your nasal breathing. And if you train your body to have it in that position all the time, eventually after 3 months you develop nerve connections, muscle connections, so that's the correct position. And if you put your tongue in the correct position when you're laid on your back, you will notice it feels freer at the back and it's quieter. And that's how we want to
actually, because yeah, my tongue would normally sit behind my teeth, but then when I put it on the roof, the back of your throat feels much more open, doesn't it?
Yeah. So that's just one way of doing it, but we need to train ourselves. And as soon as, if people are doing a lot of mouth breathing in the day, their tongue's not in the correct position, it's weak, it's just sat down there, flopping about. It requires tongue strength to have it up against the roof of the mouth. If people are sleeping with their mouth open, clearly the tongue's too far back, it's going to be impacting their airway.
So all these people who are spending their life, sticky taping their lips together, if they haven't actually trained their tongue to be in the right place, then they're really wasting their time.
Not necessarily, because it does help, because obviously when you have your mouth open, it hinges your jaw down, which obviously will impact the airway. So getting the mouth closed, yes, is important, but exactly as you say, it's getting the correct tongue position, having the strength, the throat muscles to be strong. But the other thing is, again, coming back to, and this is probably the hardest thing to teach people, particularly in this sort of forum where we've not got lots of time, is we need to ensure that someone is not over breathing, because if they're breathing around 6 litres a minute is all we need, and if people are at rest and can hear themselves breathe, it's likely that they are breathing in excess of their body's requirements, and that will make it more likely your airway will collapse and rattle as you're breathing when you're asleep. But also there's an energy requirement to that. Who on earth wants to spend extra energy dragging 10 or 12 litres in and out of their body? I want to have efficient breathing, so I spend the minimum amount on breathing as an energy, and then I've got more energy to do yoga or go for a run. We need to be thinking in this different way.
Although the facetious side of me thinks, well, if it burns more energy, it's burning more calories, so therefore the flat tongue will be losing weight, and it's a win-win all around. Yes, I do have a very sick mind. The way it works is very, very sick indeed. In fact, if it works at all. All right, so we need to then retrain the way we breathe. I mean, what about the diaphragm? How important is the diaphragm? Is it really just about the nose, or is it about both of them?
Absolutely. So the diaphragm is the main breathing muscle. And as women, again, this is all new things that I've learned. Our ribs are hung on differently to our spine than men. So our ribs are hung more at a sort of diagonal angle like that, whereas men, they're hung more horizontally. So women are sort of primed to probably more upper chest breathe, or they could shift that more easily than perhaps men could. And it's thought that the ribs are hung differently so that we can basically, our pregnant womb can sort of rise up, and the ribs can rise out of the way to make space for that. And the other thing that I think is really common in women, we're all told to hold our tummies in to sort of, have that flat stomach. And as soon as we're pulling in our tummy, it makes us more likely to upper chest breathe. But if you're using your upper chest to breathe, you're not going to be using your diaphragm as effectively. And the diaphragm is, if we're using the diaphragm effectively, essentially you bring the air and the blood in and out of your body with less effort. It's less work on the heart. And that's why it's essential when we're asleep that the mouth is closed, and then we're using that diaphragm to essentially bring the air and blood in and out of the body more easily, just with the pressure changes, without our heart having to pump harder.
How do people know if they're breathing chest-wise or diaphragmatically? How can they easily tell? And if they are breathing up here all the time, how can they easily learn to work those muscles?
So just by observing, if you look down on your chest, just look, is it your chest that's moving more, or is it more your ribs that are moving? If you're breathing with your diaphragm, as you breathe in, the ribs at the bottom, the front ribs at the bottom, should come out as you breathe in, and then when you exhale, they should go in. So just observe how you're breathing, particularly when you're sort of distracted, because then you're more easily, you're not interfering with your breathing pattern. Nasal breathing absolutely is key. You recruit the diaphragm much better if you're nasal breathing. But if you think about it, I will still come back to this over breathing, because if you're thinking about, if I have to shift lots of air in and out of my body quickly, I am much more likely to be more upper chest breathing. So I'm going to be breathing fast and shallow because I've got to shift all that air. Whereas if I'm breathing more slowly, I have the chance to bring that air into the bottom and then bring that air out. And that gives much more use of the diaphragm. But to breathe slower, we need to be more tolerant to the buildup of carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide is that thing that gives us that feeling of air hunger. It makes us feel like we feel suffocated. It makes us want to take the next breath.
Yeah, it's the trigger point, isn't it? Where that's the thing that actually makes you take your next breath. So basically, are you saying, so when we get intolerant to it, we basically say, oh, I need to breathe more often.
Yeah, and I've worked with some individuals that they are so intolerant to the buildup of carbon dioxide through no fault of their own, but they're breathing in, and before they've even fully exhaled, they want the next breath comes in to trigger the next breath. And medically, we call this air trapping, which can happen in for various reasons. But I would say the one that I've seen is long COVID. Long COVID, for whatever reason, in my clinical experience, it makes people intolerant to the buildup of carbon dioxide. And some individuals will not have completed their exhale before the drive to take the next inhale comes in.
Wow, that really does a reflection of the scarring in the lungs, really, in a way, isn't it?
Scary. Not necessarily scarring. It is more that I think it's such an inflammatory virus. This is my personal opinion on from observing and working with people, is I think COVID is very inflammatory. It triggers that fight-flight response. And how do we breathe with a fight-flight response? I'll tell you how you breathe when a dog came and thought it was going to attack me. You breathe like this when you're in fight-flight response. It's fast, it's loud, it's upper chest, it's open mouth. Now, it may not be as dramatic as that. That was when I was, I thought it was going to be attacked by a dog. But if we breathe like that, that's fueling that fight-flight response, but then that fuels carbon dioxide intolerance. Whereas if we breathe in and out of the nose and it's slow and it's quiet, it's calming the body, it's telling the body we're safe. But I think something with long COVID happens because it triggers the fight-flight response. It does something along that lines. And I've seen some people who actually I suspect had a very good breathing pattern before, but it's the long COVID that's triggered that intolerance to carbon dioxide. And unless you know how important it is that we breathe slowly and gently in and out of the nose, you're not to know about that.
Interesting. Question here: does mouth taping work?
Mouth taping is absolute. Well, getting the mouth closed at night is absolutely crucial. And I certainly I encourage the individuals that I work with to do that, and I do that myself. What I will say is, by getting the mouth closed, you've not corrected the overbreathing, if overbreathing is there with an individual. So if you get the mouth closed and you're using a product that goes across the mouth and someone is over breathing, you've not corrected that, and then that person may not be able to release as much air out of their nostrils as their body needs, and then actually that can impact the airway because you've got all this air in the mouth that the person can't let out. So I encourage people when they first start to use a product that goes around the mouth, because then if the body needed to breathe out, then the body has the opportunity to do that. And I would always say it's not just about getting the mouth closed, it's all those other aspects we've talked about.
Interesting. And once you've mastered breathing, I mean, basically, I mean, if we're thinking that poor disordered breathing, as we mentioned before, increases your risk of heart disease, strokes, heart attacks, dementia, also blood pressure, all of those sorts of things that contribute to those risk factors. What are the benefits of being of breathing once you've got this under control? What benefits could you or may you expect to see?
I mean, the three things I can confidently say, and I can reference various science things, is you will sleep better. You will have an improved ability of stress resilience and ability to self-regulate your body between that fight flight response and the relaxation response, and you're less breathless with movement. I'm going to be cheeky and say, but when do we say we've mastered breathing? You know, I think my breathing is in a really good place, but I could improve it further. You know, I could improve my breathing for sports performance. I could even do free diving. I could aim to be the world champion free diver. You know, where does it stop? I think you have to decide where you want it to be for you. So at the moment, my breathing is where I want it to be for the activities that I want to be. But if I end up doing competitive running when the kids leave home, I will be improving my breathing further.
Now, this is an interesting one because it was Kate Winslet, wasn't it? She was the one who did this this breathing technique, didn't she? She managed to do for that free diving movie, which I haven't seen yet, but apparently she held her breath for 9 minutes or something extraordinary.
I can't remember how many minutes. It was something around that, and she beat Tom Cruise apparently, and they said she was a real natural. And she's late 40s, I think. So it's our body has this huge ability to adapt. And I mean, free divers, it's amazing. I've not done free diving. There's all sorts of bits to it, but one of the bits is improving their carbon dioxide tolerance. So there's lots to be learned from free divers. I don't understand why we're not studying them, because I think they're a really interesting group to study scientifically.
Yes, that is, of course, as long as they don't kill themselves while they're down there. But he has quite a high death rate, I believe. On the negative side, that one. The other thing out of that is when you're exercising. All right, so I think that I would probably breathe quite well normally, but then it all falls apart when I exercise. So exercise throws a whole nother level onto nasal breathing. How on earth do you train yourself? Because I really have in preparation for this, I was on the treadmill yesterday and I was thinking, okay, I'm really going to try and breathe through my nose. And I've been, trying to watch it, because I remember you did a video a little while back of how you could change your heart rate through the way you breathe and things like that. So I've been having a go at these things, but when I get on that treadmill, it's over. The nasal breathing just goes. So why?
Why? Because you're exercising, you're creating more waste products, so your carbon dioxide is increasing in the blood. And we've all got a personal tolerance to that. So in our breathing center in the back of our brain, we've got chemoreceptors, and we have a personal tolerance to carbon dioxide. So when you were on that treadmill and you tried to maintain nasal breathing, but you felt suffocated, it was too difficult, you'd hit your personal tolerance to carbon dioxide. But you can change that. The free divers prove that. I've proven that because I now do all my running with nasal breathing. I managed to do. I was the girl that nobody wanted on their school sports team. I was certainly not sporty when I was younger. I was always last to be picked. And I did a 10K in 50 minutes, being menopausal, and I can't remember, 270 feet of elevation. And I actually taped my mouth when I did it, because I thought, you know what, I'm going to prove to you all that I can do this with just nasal breathing. And I couldn't have done that 3 years ago. There's no way on that. So I've obviously worked really hard on it. But I think one of the things you can do is, say, when you're on your treadmill trying to do that, is to try and maintain your exercise with a tolerable air hunger. So as you're on your treadmill, think, okay, yes, I feel slightly suffocated, but can I just get it to a level where it's not going to tip me into a panic attack, but I am feeling a little bit of tolerable air hunger. And if you can do that, you will retrain those chemoreceptors. Obviously, it only lasts for a short time and then it will go back. But if you keep doing that regularly, your body resets that sensitivity level and it will improve. Now, obviously, I would say it's probably easier to do exercises at rest to retrain that. And it does depend. There's such a spectrum of breathing inefficiency. I get people who I've had individuals that I've just asked them to close their mouth for a minute and they literally feel suffocated with that. There's no way I could tell that individual to get on a treadmill and do that sort of method. And they need a very gentle approach, but they've got huge amounts to gain from it. Whereas you've got other people who you just say, do what I've just suggested, and they get on really well with it. But that's because there's different efficiencies. But for people to have that understanding that air hunger, that feeling of suffocation, it's generally not a drop in oxygen, it's an increase of carbon dioxide. And if they can sit with that tolerably, so not enough to tip a panic attack, because it can do that, and I don't want anybody to feel worse, but if you can sit with it, you actually get more used to it. And actually, carbon dioxide is a narcotic gas. It has really calming, although you won't believe me from the treadmill experience, but it has calming effects on the brain.
Yes, it will be hard to imagine at that particular moment. I'm sitting going, the woman's insane. No, I didn't actually. But you're right. Yeah, if you train those sorts of things and go a little bit longer with each one within each kind of step, yes, it is. It's an interesting self-experiment, and one that will benefit them by dropping your blood pressure, hopefully.
Yep.
Improving your ability to cope with stress and those sorts of things, because you can engage it when you need it, and hopefully give you a better night's sleep, therefore reducing your cardiovascular disease risk and risk of dementia. There's no downside to it, and it doesn't cost anything really. I suppose the thing that probably does cost is you are doing courses for people, but you do them in groups, so it's not so. In fact, actually, I was going to enroll, but then I saw today that I've already missed the start of the first one for this year, so I'll have to wait till the next one. But so tell me about the courses, what you do on them, and how they work.
So essentially, I on the group course, it's an hour a week for 5 weeks, and I go through. I include all. There's 3 dimensions of breathing, so I include all of the dimensions, and I take people through that. And then there's a platform I use that's got various breathing exercises that they've got access to for 3 months afterwards, because everyone's at different levels. Some people can move faster, some people need to move slower, so they can do it at their own pace. I do run individual programs as well, so for those individuals that prefer to sort of pace it according to their diary, or don't necessarily want to do it every week, they want to do it more over a longer period and have that support with me in between the sessions, then obviously I offer that as well. But yeah, it's I love doing what I do, because I there was a period in my life as a GP where I felt like I really wasn't making a difference, and I became a doctor because I wanted to help people. And this, I'm not saying it will cure everything, but if you don't breathe efficiently, that is the basic foundation of life. Your body will still get oxygen in and still get rid of your carbon dioxide, but if it does it in an inefficient way, it can actually start to use the wrong muscles, and it affects oxygen delivery and sleep, and it means the whole system potentially then doesn't have is working on an inefficient, shaky foundation. Whereas if you get that right, you then have the potential for other things to start working really well. And it is lovely. I've had people that have had such. I had one individual who started to smell again after 18 years and being told that she would never smell again. And how, can you imagine how that feels, that someone can now smell the bolognese cooking and smell and taste are very interlinked, aren't they? So people now don't get up to go to the toilet at night, so and not necessarily having frequent wakenings at night, and people now who couldn't exercise because they were too breathless can now actually maybe engage in some walking or different Pilates or whatever. So it's lovely to see people on that journey. It's not an overnight fix, because it's an active process. If you're retraining your body, you are consciously trying to make changes consciously to your breathing pattern, so that over time it becomes your unconscious pattern. So it is an active process, not a passive process. But there's 2 wonderful things that I find is that when you re-educate your body, is you realize your body's not fixed and can improve at any age. And because some of the work that I do, it can make it a bit uncomfortable sometimes, you realize you can get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think there's nothing more important, particularly as women go through the perimenopause and to postmenopause.
Yeah, that's true. I'm practicing here, putting the tongue in the right spot, and every time I do it, it's making my resting bitch face worse, I have to say. It makes my double chin worse. Look, it's normally I'd be like, that's when I put the tongue in the right position. Look.
It normally tightens everything up here. So not with you.
Not with me, exactly. Lucky me. I'm so lucky all around, really. There you go. Brilliant. Is there anything else that we need to tick off? I think because I was so incensed at that survey that the government put out last September, studying people of reproductive health between the ages of 16 and 55. So I did my own study of 55 plus, and it really, sleep was the number one thing that came back as the main concern. 87% of people said sleep was an issue. And then if you looked at all the other things that followed from that, brain fog, and the things that make you get up in the night, the stress, urinary incontinence and anxiety and all of those sorts of things, you can see if you're not getting a decent night's sleep how everything else just falls apart. So my plan this year is to focus on a couple of things really continuously and heavily, and also hopefully get some research started on it with, because I think this would be a very good area to do some good research on for the Menopause Research and Education Fund, is sleep, gender-specific risk factors for coronary heart disease and metabolic diseases, and the benefits, or trying to work out whether or not testosterone does actually improve your brain fog, or is it all because we're just not sleeping properly? So yeah, they're the three things that I really want to get underway this year. So so we shall be talking more. We will be doing this more regularly, and we will work out ways of making sure that the nation breathes properly. So if people want to find you to enroll for this course, where do they find you, lovely?
So my website is www.drlouiseoliver, therapeuticlifecoaching.com. I'm on Instagram as Dr. Louise Oliver TLC, Facebook is Louise Oliver, and I do have a YouTube channel, although I don't put loads on there, but I am trying over time to upload things. So it's Dr. Louise Oliver TLC.
There you go. And I always thought that the TLC meant tender, loving care, but therapeutic life coach.
It means both.
There you go. Brilliant. All right. Excellent. Shall we leave it there then?
Thank you very much, Fiona. And obviously, you know, with sleep, there's lots of different things that can interfere it, but just ask the question, how do you breathe when asleep? That's simple.
And if you can't work it out, actually, just before we go, if you can't work it out yourself, if you have a partner and they are telling you that you're sort of making strange noises, I mean, you said that it presented differently slightly in women, but do we still do, is it just a snoring, or do we still do that sort of, or is it that?
So yeah, so basically, if you have your mouth open, if it's making those sort of grunty noises, snoring, if there's gaps in breathing, all that's not an efficient breathing pattern. And there is a video on my YouTube channel, so Dr. Louise Oliver TLC, Am I Breathing Efficiently? Because we don't actually have a gold standard way of working out if someone's breathing efficiently at the moment. I hear someone's working on it, but I've got a few ideas on that video where I help people try and work out if they're breathing efficiently or not. You can, Mr. Vic Veer, he's an ENT consultant. He's got a free app that is called Snore Doctor, if I'm remembering it properly, and because he's very passionate about sleep disorder breathing. So you can have that app record you at night for a week, and then it feeds back to you how you're breathing whilst asleep. So that can be helpful as well to work out.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because these sleep studies and things are, you know, they're like hen's teeth to get into. And I mean, like Joey was saying before, there are things that you can use at home now, but again, you know, to get hold of them is very, very difficult. So unless somebody either tells you there's something wrong, don't take it as an insult. If they're telling you that you're snoring, take it as a positive of like, you're saving my life. You told me I've snored, and then get it sorted. Exactly. Look at it from a different point of view. Yeah, brilliant. All right. So the what was the name of that app again?
I think it's called Snore Doctor, Vic Veer's Snore Doctor app, I think. You just have to, it's free. He just asks for an email to register it. I think he does, there is in-app purchases just to try and keep it going, but you don't have to buy those at all. So,
yeah. Okay, brilliant. All right, look, thank you so much for that. And we'll speak to you again soon at some stage. I will end this here, and lovely to talk to you.
Lovely to talk to you, Fiona. Thank you ever so much.
Take care.